Okay, why don't we get started then? We'll call the meeting to order at 4:03 p.m. And item 2, Marion, can you do a roll call?
Roll call. Malcolm?
Yes.
Here.
Donald? Joe?
John's here.
John? Kurt?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes, here.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds great. We have quorum. Thanks, everybody. Okay, item 3, public participation. Here we go. Let me read this one more time. Public participation enables the public to address the commission about an item that is not on the agenda. If you wish to address the commission, please state your name and address for the record. The Arizona open meeting law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking action on an item which is not listed on the prepared agenda. The commission members may, however, respond to criticism made by those addressing the commission, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be placed on a future agenda. Public comments should be limited to 3 minutes reading time. Okay, do we have any public participation today?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Please state your name for the record.
Okay. It's under Aaron's turn. Disregard. Disregard.
Disregard. Okay. Going once. Any reconsideration? Going twice. 3 times. Okay. Thank you. We move on to item 4, approval of minutes. Does anybody have any revisions or amendments to the minutes as published? Any commissioners?
Got a slight change.
Okay.
Right above item B, in that last paragraph, I made a comment, and it says at the very end, encourage the Forest Service to close the forest to motorized vehicles. I'm not interested in closing the whole forest, just the forest on the south side of the peaks. So
Highest impact area. Any other amendments or recommendations?
Yes, this is Rob. I have one comment at the end of section B. The final sentence says the long-term goal is how to be more efficient with reclaimed water with a host of reasons. I think that's certainly included in the intent here, but I think the primary thrust of the effort is to review and comment on reclaimed water pricing policy.
Concur. So, Robert, can you maybe send specific text to Marion so she can incorporate that?
Yes, I'd be happy to.
That'd be great. Okay. All right, with those friendly amendments, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Move to approve with amendments.
All right, second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Next will be new business, which is item 5.1.
Chair,
Pressure sewer. Oh, yes, ma'am.
this is Vice Mayor Sweet. If I can interrupt real quick, we have a lot of changes going on with our Water Commission, but I'm not sure everyone is aware of another retirement. Shannon Jones will be leaving the organization. Tomorrow is his last day. And I just wanted to say, as the liaison and someone who's heavily involved in all of the water issues facing Flagstaff, I appreciate Shannon's work. And I think you have been so valuable to our city and to our organization. And I wish you a lot of luck in your future. You will be missed. And I just really appreciate all of the hard work that you've done for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Appreciate that.
Yes, I was gonna talk about that in section 7 and give Shannon a bad time, but yeah, I agree with your comments, Councilperson Sweet, and I have seen and been in several meetings with Director Jones, and his level of expertise and leadership have been exceptional. And I think that the department's luckily has learned under your tutelage and seen how you handle processes, how you think about things, think about the bigger system, which is really important. And I know in speaking to many of the personnel that they've learned from you. And I wish you well, and thank you so much for the coaching and guidance to the team and myself, how to view these things and how to think about the whole system. So happy new year and good luck, and you will be sorely missed. That's for sure. That's my 2
Thank you,
cents.
Mr. Chair.
Any
I'll
other
second
commissioners?
both.
I said I'll second both. Thank you. Really appreciate all your work.
Okay, now we'll move to section 5.1, which is new business, the pressure sewer code amendment with Jackson Salazar. Jackson, you have the floor. Jackson, if you're talking, I can't hear you. You got to hit that button.
Can you hear me now? Oh, there it goes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I'll restart on that. So good afternoon, Water Commission members. My name is Jackson Salazar. I'm a project manager with Water Services, and I'm here to present on the pressure sewer code amendment. I'll start with a brief history of pressure sewer in Flagstaff. So pressurized sewer has historically been prohibited in Flagstaff. I think that is just because the topography of the area, a large majority of the city drains to the Wildcat Hill wastewater treatment plant. So there's been no real need for pressure sewer up to this point. So yeah, up to this point, the city's been handling all pressure sewer calls with one-off decisions. There's been no code besides it being prohibited in the code. So the city currently owns one large lift station at the Rio de Flag treatment plant. It pumps the wastewater up from the Rio up the hill to the treatment plant where it's treated. And then the city owns one low pressure system that came from development. And then there's a few different private pressure systems and some kind of weird areas where we have a public gravity system that drains to a private pump station and then pumps back up to gravity at the top. That would be in Pine Canyon. So we've been doing research. We did hire NCS engineers to complete a survey. They reached out to, I believe, 8 cities and then 6 got back to us. So we've been using that kind of information to formulate this code. And then we also met with the city of Prescott wastewater superintendent and toured a few lift station sites and kind of talked to him about how they handle lift stations. So I'll get into a little bit of just how it works. brief rundown. So basically this picture shows like a normal setup at a house. You would, this is pretty typical with our gravity setup too, but then so you have a sewer service come into a public sewer main, and then in this case, it'll go downhill to a regional lift station, which then pumps it back up to a gravity sewer. And so here's kind of a more bigger picture of that. So here, this is out on Lake Mary Road. We have kind of a high point in between our existing sewer system, which is up here at JW Powell and Lake Mary. And then we have, a subdivision down here that has some development going on. And so I think if we were to gravity sewer this subdivision, it goes into Skunk Canyon where we don't have any existing treatment plants. So leaves us with a few different options. You could potentially build a package treatment plant, like a small treatment plant there. Septic works on a smaller scale and more kind of spread out development. But once you get to a high density, then you can end up with some gravity sewer down to a regional lift station like this shows. So in this case, this whole subdivision would gravity from kind of both sides and hopefully even from this east side down to a regional lift station. The regional lift station would pump that sewage up to the high point, and then there'd be a discharge manhole. And then from there, we would extend the public gravity system to that point. So to
Quick
summarize,
question.
yeah, go ahead.
That doesn't actually exist right now, does it?
No, it does not
Okay,
exist. And yeah, that type of setup doesn't exist anywhere in the city right now, at least publicly owned. So this is just a brief summary of what this code amendment does. It would allow pressure sewer outside of the gravity sewer shed of the Wildcat plant while keeping it prohibited within that sewer shed. Like I was explaining in that last slide, you have a gravity system that goes down to a regional lift station, and then as soon as you cross the boundary where gravity is feasible again, then you would transition back to gravity. And then this sets minimum standards for the specifications for lift stations and force mains, which we don't have any right now because it's been prohibited up to this point. So here's a map of the gravity sewer shed of the Wildcat Hill plant. As you can see, it covers a large majority of private land in Flagstaff, and we're not looking to change that prohibition within the gravity sewer shed. We feel that gravity is the best way to do it if it's possible. So there's just a few kind of outskirt areas that this would apply to. So in conclusion, the code amendment allows for public ownership of pressurized sewer system within the city limits, but outside that gravity sewer shed. New lift stations and force mains will all be required to be built per this new code, the new specifications that are in there. And then we still maintain the choice to choose to make a system private if we don't see a public benefit. So, and then we do have some next steps. We've sent out this new code amendment to our engineering standards like notification list. So it's been shared with like local engineers and developers and other interested people on that list. And we're accepting comments through an online form. We plan to present to council during the January 14th work session. And then do a first read on the January 21st and second read February 4th. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions or discussion.
Any questions?
Yes, I have one. This is Rob. Yeah, thanks for that presentation. I'm curious whether you could walk me through a little bit about the thought process about when the city might choose to either assert and desire to make a lift station public versus when they're happy to leave it private. Yeah, what are the trade-offs in that kind of a decision?
Yeah, I think the big thing that I've been seeing would be that if you have like a regional lift station where it's more than one or two customers, and especially once you get to like multiple different property owners, I feel like, or if there's any desire in the future to expand the lift station, I feel like that's when you would want it to be public. I think private lift stations have some problems for the city with like billing and like new connections. Having a private utility within the city would basically allow them to charge a rate different than other people receive. And then they would have a say whether or not a new customer could connect to it.
I see. Does this rule or the potential creation of even public lift stations, does this have implications for connection fees? Would there be specific connection fees associated or unique fees associated with that lift station, or is that just covered under the standard fees that anyone would pay?
At this point, it was going to be covered under the standard fees, like the standard capacity fees that they pay on the meter buy-in.
One more question. I did have a chance to scan the regulation that I believe Aaron sent out, or Marion, and under the provision for a backup energy source, diesel and so. I read that provision, but it didn't state any length of time for which that had to be,
Yeah,
capable.
yeah. So I actually got some feedback on that yesterday after I had sent that over to Marion to send to you guys. But before I sent it out for the engineering standards community, and I actually updated that to have a 24-hour minimum, that it would be able to operate on that second source.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions, but any others?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. One is, has this been precipitated by a proposed development out there, presumably east of town?
I would say that, yeah, there's two developments happening on Lake Mary Road that have brought this to the forefront. And kind of, whether we were to do this code amendment or not, there's considerable research and staff time that has to go into making a good decision on whether or not to take on that lift station as public. At this point, there's no standards to go off of, so I feel like that makes it really hard to negotiate that to make them put in a quality lift station. And so I think that brought it to the forefront. But looking at that, looking at the map, there's hundreds of acres of private land outside of the gravity sewer shed. So I think we could have kicked it down the line a little bit longer, but I think it's coming up no matter what, that we're either gonna, we have to find a way to serve these people with sewer that's outside that area.
Okay, yeah, I get that. So this might be that, I noticed there was a rezoning case out on Lake Mary, opposite the subdivision you had up there, right? That would be the one, okay.
Yep.
All right, one other thing, and maybe, conditions of zoning as well might, when you think about the land that's out there, it's all zoned rural residential and has to be rezoned. So that's also an opportunity to require it to be certain standards in public, but maybe that's another story. My second question is, in the past, utilities for certain infrastructure have required 10 years of O&M to go along with the, and I reviewed the document and I could have missed it, but I don't think I saw it. So I guess I would suggest that you consider some kind of prepaid O&M because these things are going to be a nightmare and we're going to have a rate study and they're going to show up in there going, oh my God, we got to replace 15 pumps at the lift station. So
Right.
have you considered that O&M?
Yeah, that is a fair consideration. I've kind of gone back and forth on charging some upfront O&M and some other setups, but I think that's something that we really need to take a look at is if we are to take these on, how are we, handling that cost in the future? And I think it's kind of a double-sided sword where if you try to keep them private, we did talk with City of Prescott, and I feel like they didn't take any of them on publicly originally, but they own something like 60 lift stations. So I think what can happen is, you try to keep it private, and then eventually the pumps are failing. The homeowners association doesn't have money to fix it, and then the city is kind of forcibly pushed to taking it by state agencies. And so I definitely see the O&M, and I think we need to discuss that more. But I see the other side of, we need to do something to take public ownership, in my opinion, because keeping them private usually ends up backfiring.
I can certainly see that. And my years of experience in it would just say, make them public, get 10 years of O&M up front, end of story. Because otherwise, if it's private, you just said it. It's going to fail. Then they're going to be talking to council, please take this, and it wasn't built to our standards.
Mhm.
Here we go, right? So it just seems to me, make them public to begin with, get some O&M, and there you go.
I like it. Thank you.
I didn't have a chance to, this is John, I didn't have a chance to read it, but I'm just curious, would the subdivisions that are on a pump station, would they have a change in their rates? Their monthly rates, or how is that going to be, the cost of that going to, or does it just spread amongst everybody?
So in our research, we didn't find any cities that had additional rates for people on lift stations. It was spread throughout the community. I think that is something that we want to look at and make sure that the cost is going to line up correctly. I think these guys are paying to put the lift station in any case that this goes through publicly, and paying all their capacity fees and that stuff up front, and then would be ratepayers after that. But I think we definitely need to look a little bit further into making sure that it's a positive financially.
Overall, I think it's a great idea. It gets people off septic, and we don't need any more septics, and the more we can get rid of, the better. So I think from that point of view, it's an important thing to do. So go for it.
Any other comments? I have two real quick for you, Jackson. One, I sort of echoing some of the previous, I wouldn't allow private in the system. I'd allow private funding, but ultimately it's a public works. It's got to be to our standard. It's got to fit into our system. And when things go south, there's going to be a lot of finger pointing. And at the end of the day, the citizens are going to be the ones stuck in the muck, literally. So I would really urge you all to consider a model that is private financing, but of a public good. And then to your point about differentiated rates, I mean, if there's enough CapEx and OpEx put up front, then the rate shouldn't be differentiated for those consumers. But if it's not, then, that might be something we've got to look at, which is, off of this branch, there's a accelerator, if you will, or a differentiation on the rate structure, just because it is what it is. So anyway, that's my two thoughts.
Thank you. Yeah, we will definitely follow up on the the rates and kind of that O&M conversation. And then I think Marion sent it out to you guys, but I had a form that was on a later email that I sent to the engineering notifications group. So I'll try to get that out to you guys so that there's a form that you guys can input comments on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to item 6.1, old business. Reclaim water rate discussion update. Aaron Young, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Chairman Rugelman, Aaron Young, Water Resource Manager. This has been a process led by Chairman Rugelman, and I've just been working with city staff to facilitate as needed. This team has met 3 times in person with reclaimed water users to work through what is now an executive summary and a guidance document that would be presented to City Council. Chairman Rugelman, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're looking for support from the commissioners tonight for the draft document in front of them. We could take suggested edits or amendments, make those, and then present it to City Council. Did I get that right?
Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
to the, yeah, I wasn't sure if you were done. To the extent
Yes.
that everybody's had time to read it, we'd love to get feedback. I'd love to have Commissioner Vane give some of his thoughts. I think we have some folks in the audience that want to comment as well.
We have
At
one
at least
public
one that I
comment.
know of. Yeah,
At least one.
So why don't we start with the public comments, and then we can do a quick discussion of the commissioners if they've had time to go through it. And I'd love to have Commissioner Vane give his thoughts after that. So let's do our public comments.
Okay.
This never gets easy. Thank you, Chairman Riegelman, Commission, good evening. Thank you. My name is Nicole Ellman, and I am here representing Aspen Valley Golf Course. I would like to first recognize and thank Aaron Young, Director Jones, although it's his last day tomorrow. Thank you for your work. Water Services staff and the commissioners for their work in facilitating the working groups and for inviting the feedback and participation of the end users. This is a very important discussion that we're engaging in, and we appreciate that opportunity. Some key points that I would like to highlight are Aspen Valley and Continental Country Club, which is Flagstaff's only public golf course, are equal owners in a maintenance company that manages our water contract. So both courses have a vested interest in this discussion today, as does that maintenance company. Although we are a private golf course, Aspen Valley does have a fiduciary responsibility to manage our members' fees and their dues in the most efficient and transparent manner possible. Our club members demand that we perform this action, and we live up to fulfill that. As you can imagine, reclaimed water is a material line item. Water is the lifeblood of a golf course, right? No grass, no water, no water, no grass. As a member of the working group, for which I'm very grateful, Aspen Valley fully supports the water commissions and the water department in launching and engaging in a cost to service study for reclaimed water rates. We also agree that the next natural step is a rate study that would develop specific rate structure for the reclaimed water. The current methodology of reclaimed water rates as it currently sits as a fixed percentage of potable water seems arbitrary. There's no logical link between costs and cost of service supplying that water. So we do appreciate being able to address the true cost of supplying that valuable resource to the end users. The team here at Aspen Valley appreciates and agrees with the focus on redefining the reclaimed water rate. So we're in support of the guiding document that we hope you present to council.
with the consideration for implementation of any potential new rates after the 2029 period. As you are well aware, reclaimed water rates did go up with the potable water rates and expect to go up over the next 5 years, roughly 45%. That's a huge impact to one of our largest line items. So we do appreciate that consideration as well. We do look forward to continue collaboration with the Water Department and the Water Commission on potential conservation, storage, and water quality improvement. We do recognize that the city's obligated to treat wastewater, which is how reclaimed water comes to us, which is wonderful, and appreciate the extra steps given to supply that water to the end users. Aspen Valley remains committed to exploring conservation activities, which include, but are not limited to, the Arizona Department of Water Resources Fifth Management Plan Work Group. We are also excited to continue to explore mutually beneficial improvements to the overall system and water quality. Thank you, gentlemen. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? No? Okay, thank you so much. I guess the next step is, does everybody feel like they've had time to read the document enough? Because I definitely want people to let it soak. Do we have enough folks that feel that way to have a discussion, or is it, and if we don't, we could go through a little bit of a background discussion about how we got here. So probably need to do that anyways, but folks feel like, do other commissioners feel like they've had enough time to review and can have discussion?
This is Malcolm. I've looked at it and it seems pretty innocent to me. So I don't really see anything that I would object to.
Okay, and I know council members, commission members, Vane and Bills are on the working group too. So, all right, Commissioner Vane, you want to give some background from your thoughts of what you thought was good, bad, and then Commissioner Bills can go after that.
Okay, if I may, I'd like to ask one process question before I jump into any kind of a summary of my thinking, at least, and that is the plan to go forward to council with just the executive summary, or is it the desire to have developed any background information to go along with that executive summary?
Yeah, no, I'm
I'm
like
just asking procedurally here.
Yeah, procedural. I'd like to have a deeper package, right, which we can put together. But I mean, the relevant points of consideration are in that executive summary that you so nicely put together. So I feel okay having that discussion tonight about just that document. Anything that we put together after that is really going to just be things that support those points, right? So, you know, more definition on the specific things we're talking about in the master plan that was approved in the past, some more specifics around some of the regulatory things that might be coming down the way, you know, those kinds of things. So I think, and more probably pointing to a few more facts in the annual water study, or excuse me, the water plan, or come on, Kurt, the annual water reports that come out every year. There's some data in there that we probably want to, you know, point to, but the primary concepts are in that document that you put together.
Is there actually a target council meeting date that we're trying to which we're trying to take this document? You know, have we set that? Is that some date in January, or what is that plan?
Aaron, what's your thought on that?
Chairman and Council or Commissioner Vane, I would look to Councilmember Sweet, or I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Sweet, and Shannon Anderson if they feel like commenting now on when this might be an appropriate time to bring forward.
And I will defer to Shannon Anderson. I think really it's her wheelhouse on timing.
Thanks, Aaron. I would say probably the earliest would be end of January. I believe our January 21st meeting, the deadline to get that information for the council packet is January 8th. So I think that could be the absolute earliest. Following that would be that first meeting in February. If we needed some more time to be able to put together the information that we'd like to present to council, meaning the staff summary, getting it circulated.
Yeah, I asked that in part because, thinking through what time it takes to put together the additional background information we've spoken of, and whether you're going to want an additional meeting of the working group, to review and approve that. So perhaps that has to be taken offline, but we should think through what a realistic process is. We're kind of at year end now. A lot of people are. We probably won't get a lot done before the end of the holidays and first week of the new year and so forth. So maybe perhaps offline, we should think that through what the best target date would be and process for getting all that in place.
Yeah, it
Yeah, I
might
think-
be that. Oh, sorry, Kurt. I was just going to say it could be that February 18th meeting, because then it would give us until February 5th to be able to finalize any documents that you need. It gives a little bit more time for folks to do that. So that might be the best option.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And then Robert, I think we can put that together and circulate it to folks. I don't know that we need to get everybody in the room, but in terms of the relevant background points. So, but we want to give people time to read it, right? So that makes sense.
And if I may, Chairman Riegelman, that timing would work for us to provide the information to the Water Commission at the January meeting. If there is room on the agenda, we could present it. Or at least, if there's not enough room on the agenda, at least take any comments on the material.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be great.
Aaron, right now there's only 2 other items slated for that meeting. So I think if we put a hold on it, just as a placeholder, you can always move it. I'd be happy to send that to Stacy.
Thank you, Shannon. That sounds great.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Vane. Any comments or what in terms impressions for the rest of the team in terms of the process and how you felt things went?
This is Don. I'm just starting to get my voice back today, so bear with me. I think that the executive summary does a pretty good job of capturing the 3 main issues that we were thinking that the city council might want to spend most of their time addressing, and that is, the 35% of potable pricing approach, decoupling reclaimed water from potable water, both in terms of the pricing and how the 2 particular sources are provided by the city, and then the cost of service study, which would be an important follow-up component to better define what the actual cost of providing reclaimed water is. In terms of maybe rounding out and adding a little bit more background to the executive summary, the work group was working off some main documents that were provided to us to provide background in terms of reclaimed water, how it's been dealt with and provided around the city in the past, and providing that kind of information, particularly in terms of the amount of volume and I'm not sure income is the right term, but the funds that are provided by reclaimed water that's sold back to users in the city would be really good information for the council to have in hand when they're looking at this executive summary.
Agreed. Any
This
other?
is Mal-
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, it's Malcolm. I'm not sure exactly how to start, but it has to do with rates. I'm trying to picture the end product in 2029 or whatever that is, whatever the date is. I know we're not doing anything until the next rate study. Rate study usually includes a master plan for reclaimed water and how that would lay out. And I don't really think we have that, do we? No. Okay, so the other thing I'm worried about is supply and demand. This is a resource now. It's not just to be given away. I mean, we know that, and you've addressed that. So as we move into the future without a master plan for it, and I realize it's difficult to do a master plan because you don't know who your customers are going to be. And then if there was a customer on the west side of town, I mean, what, they're going to extend the main themselves and now it has to be looped. I mean, it's a nightmare, right? So I worry about supply and demand. And I guess I just want to say that for instance, a few years back, Little America proposed a golf course. I think they've gone away. Obviously, I'm not in touch with that kind of stuff anymore, but you know, would we have the capacity to serve another golf course? Those kinds of things come into play. So just thinking about the end, we don't have a master plan. And I don't know what the supply and demand issue looks like right now. Obviously, we're covering the demand, but how many more customers can we take on? So I don't know if any of these issues play into this document or not. You did mention CIP in one document, depending, you know, sort of on what they were going to do specifically, I think at a time. But I'm not sure if this makes any sense or if it's worthy, but that's kind of my thoughts.
No, and that's an excellent point. And we did have a pretty robust discussion around some of those things. And I'd say what it sounded like was, you know, today we sell, if you will, let's call it 45% of the reclaimed water, but it's highly seasonal, right? So there's some months where everything we produce is out the door. And where this came to kind of ahead was, you know, in the future, if we want to add people, well, we can't because we're tapped out, or B, if we want to do IPR or DPR, you don't build your sewage plant with IPR, DPR capabilities and then say, we're just shutting that off for 3 months, right? That doesn't work. So how do we look at a rate structure and also, which includes more conservation efforts and teaming with our clients to be more frugal, if you will, and potentially other ways to store or create more always on flow, if you will, to feed IPR, DPR, or maybe bring on some other short-term clients, that kind of thing. So I think it's definitely something we want to raise as a potential issue, especially as the department goes through their facilities master plan, which I know the team was working on to put this in context. Is that Commissioner Vane, Commissioner Bill, does that resonate with you in terms of what we were trying to head on that?
Yes, speaking specifically to the supply-demand situation, there's some language in this executive summary, and there was a lot more discussion behind it about conservation and really expanding the scope of water conservation efforts by the city or by water services to incorporate reclaimed water as well. And in whatever it is, 2029 or 2030, when the new rates would come in, actively looking at the possibility for tiered rates or seasonal rates to try to accomplish overall conservation as well as demand smoothing to, you know, try to avoid the extreme peak that we have today in the summer and so on and so forth. Yeah, for those who didn't hear him, Malcolm said, good luck with that. Inventions and creativity are needed, so admittedly, but at least put that on the radar screen. One other thing that was cited and is in the document, we started to get some visibility And Nicole, I believe you were part of this, getting some visibility into what's being done in the rest of the state for water conservation and specifically water conservation related to golf courses. There's some guidelines that ADWR, Arizona Department of Water Resources, has developed in the valley, working with golf courses. And we said we as a community certainly ought to be looking at those and doing at least as well or perhaps better than those, since we're not as extreme a temperature environment as the valley is. We ought to be able to do as well or better. So to my knowledge, after having been involved with this in quite a number of years, that hasn't been spoken of before. So I think getting on that on the map, maybe more aggressively than in the past, is probably a good thing. But Kurt, you had said something about my giving some kind of an overview. I don't know if you want me to do any more.
Oh, I mean,
comments.
in terms of how you felt about the process and or if the key points and anything you want to highlight. Yeah.
Yeah, there would be just a couple of key points. I've been in various forums, been watching this process since roughly 2015. And as Brad Hill used to say, reclaimed water was 10% of the revenue and 90% of the headaches, simply because of public concerns in both directions about reclaimed water. And I think what we've come up with is really moving from what a lot of people would have considered a largely arbitrary pricing policy, or said another way, a largely indefensible pricing policy, to moving something that is cost-based I think, is a huge step in the right direction. And I think for many people, it'll be perceived as more fair and give council members, something more concrete to point to. As is obvious in the past with 35%, there are people who thought the price should be lower and the people who thought the price should be higher. But it was hard to have any kind of an argument around that constructive discussion around that, because 35% was largely an arbitrary benchmark that was set back in an earlier era where the attempt was to encourage use, but really wasn't tied to anything else. So I think we're taking a great step forward in tying this to the cost of service. For me, as part of that cost of service, an important element is making sure that council has an opportunity to review the allocations. Cost of service, the cost of services concept is only as good as the cost allocations, that are made between wastewater processing for the general public and to reclaimed water. So that's a bridge which we yet have to pass, and that's a ways down the line. So the fact that we'll have a more defensible pricing policy is good and important from my viewpoint. The fact that we've given some visibility to conservation. I think one third thing I'd comment on is that we've given more visibility to a partnership between the customers for reclaimed water and water services. We've spoken quite openly of the fact that it would be good to give customers a seat at the table when the CIP plan is being put together. And, they will have views and strong views, what are the most worthwhile things and what do they perceive as less worthwhile? All the while knowing that water services has the final decision in terms of deciding what's needed for long-term maintenance of the system. So anyway, emphasizing that partnership approach is important in my mind. I think those are the key points that were important to me. There's certainly some others, but for today's meeting, those would be the things I'd like to highlight.
John here. I think that you guys did a marvelous job. This is a great one-page executive summary, I think. So thank you, the three of you here and the staff and the big users who contributed too. This really covers a lot of good stuff, and I think it's pretty inclusive of everything, but there's just three things that popped into my mind that you might want to think about. The golf course issue that was brought up, about Little America building a golf course. I'm not sure what their current regulation is with the state with regard to drilling a private well. And so it could be a trade-off if you don't give an entity water. Are they going to go ahead and drill that private well and essentially, what should we say, negate the effort of using water well? If they're pulling out of the Coconino Aquifer, that's a problem. So I'm not sure what the current state, I think it was changing. I think there was more regulation. You might know more about that, Don, but so that's just an issue to think about. The other is in case of a drought, say we have a really severe drought and we don't have the reclaimed water available to serve everybody. And say we have DPR online at that point, and that's an important source of city water. What are the priorities for use of that water? I think ultimately that needs to go into a document relating to the long-term use of reclaimed water. A minor thing, or maybe it's not so minor, should there be a pricing difference between reclaimed water that is recycled? So if the use is like flushing a toilet, should that be a lower rate than landscape use? So those are just three things that popped in my head. So
Yeah, I think to those points, the first one I can't comment on about drilling, except I don't agree with drill baby drill in this instance. The second thing I would say is as to reprioritizing usage once we get into DPR, well, that assumes that we have DPR online. That's probably a decade away, or at least 8 years. And so at that point, you would go through and codify that in your water use agreements, right? So with all the customers about, right now it's best efforts in the sense of if we're producing it, you have access to it. But if we don't have enough, then we have to go through and proportionally ration, if you will. That would get rejiggered, renegotiated in terms of now that DPR is online or IPR, that would be a priority user in that case, and then we would have to go from that standpoint. So that definitely would be something the future group would look at. And then, so to me, that's the two big points. But thank you. I mean, for me, the process, I was very happy with the engagement from the city as well as our customers. They came in with real openness to hear and listen. I mean, clearly, the message was there. Hey, we don't want to pay more, but there was also a really good discussion around are there ways to partner around conservation and potentially reshaping the demand through some system upgrades or not for storage or on-site storage. That takes a lot of storage, we know, but there was definitely an interest in pursuing that. So I think the framework and the interest is there for users, customers to be very engaged with the department going forward on this topic, which is great. It just creates a better and more rich discussion and better outcomes. The second thing, Tricia Vane, you hit all the correct things on, looking at ways to really make this rate structure more transparent, more equitable, and move away from something that was essentially politically expedient, right? This is something that really looks at what's involved in this, and we can have some great discussions in the future about potential new features or things that we want to bring in, and not to say let's raise it to 40% of potable. Well, what's the real cost, and how do we put that in, and is that a benefit to customers, and are they willing to bear that, or they say it doesn't add any value to me? Okay, then that's a much better place to be in terms of as a service provider. And it's much more, I'll call it best in class type of approach. And I think the thing that I hope also happens is it begins to set the table of awareness for the city council that reclaimed water is something that we use to conserve potable water, but also in the future, for Aaron's team, that reclaimed water has the potential and a real potential to become source stock, if you will, for potable. And we can do some smart things to help ourselves there as we look at designs of future sewage treatment, designs of the system overall. We can help ourselves to make that a more efficient potential source and load balance against Lake Mary, the Wells, Red Gap Ranch, if that ever comes to being as a regional project. But I think it's important for the city council today and in the future to keep that in perspective that, we're in the West. We are on a mountain. We've got to consider every potential water source there is. And we shortchange the citizens if we don't. So that's the one point. Maybe we need to amplify more. I don't know. But yeah, so that's it for me. So given that, the question is, commissioners, are you comfortable at this point, or do we want to wait for the supporting document to sort of give an endorsement of the executive summary, or would you like to wait until there's the supporting documentation as well? I'm good either way. Although I won't be casting a vote in January, so.
I can certainly support it.
Okay.
I can go either way, but I think that it would be beneficial to have the supporting document to help round out the executive summary.
This is John. I think this has been great work. And I think that what you've done so far is excellent. But I would like to see more of a final product before I put down a vote if possible.
Totally logical. Yeah, we just kind of ran out of time, and we being mainly me, so sorry. It wasn't Robert, it was me. So at the end of the day, why don't we'll tee this up in the January meeting, and get the document circulated early in January so that everybody has time to look at that, and then we can go through and make that. And what I'm hearing is directionally we're on target. It's just let's make sure that we have the right kind of things behind this that help better inform and educate the city council. That's what I'm hearing. Aaron, does that work for you?
Yes, I am wondering though, with you leaving, if the comments should come to me prior to the meeting and then I can put the package together for the January meeting, including a draft presentation that would go to city council, or am I trying to do too much at one meeting? Or do you have a different recommendation?
Well, no, I think we've got the broader letter that we had that was like a 3-4 pager is a great place to start for the additional, right? In my mind. So, Commissioner Bain and Bills and I can take a look at that, flush that out. I could do some stuff through the end of the year, first week of January. And then I would say that once we have that to a point that people are comfortable with it, we can circulate that to the broader commission and to Vice Mayor Sweet. And then if everybody's comfortable with that, then we can, I don't know that we really need to make a presentation. That's what the executive, for a city council, I think that's what the executive summary is for, right? We can just publish that and they should be able to read that in 5 minutes and know where we're headed, right?
I thought I heard earlier that a presentation was how we were gonna roll this out to city council, including some of the background.
Yeah, okay, I can, yeah, to your point, yeah, it'd probably be good to give them background on, here's what we did. This is how we got here. We had a working team and it comprised of these folks and we had these men, this is the process and then here's the outcome from the process. Yeah, like 2 slides, yeah. I can put that together for you, that's fine.
You probably need to take into account that you have new council members coming on board too.
Well, that's one of the reasons I think we really wanted to do this was because this is an interesting topic and we want to make sure people are oriented, if you will, and have what's the right word? Landscape's not the right word, but you know what I mean? Yeah, that they understand come on, Kurt, I'm drawing a blank, but context.
I think
We want them
landscape
to understand
works,
the
background, history,
the context
why
of
we're
what's
here.
going on. Yeah, yeah. exactly. So, because it is going to be an issue that evolves over time. So, okay, so what I heard is actions. We will develop the background document, the deeper document. B, if any of the commission members have some small tweaks or changes they want to do to the executive summary, please send that to Aaron and myself and Commissioner Vane, and we'll get that tweaked and updated. And then we will put together a couple slides for City Council as a draft that everybody can comment on early January. I miss anything? No? Okay, great. Aaron, thank you for that. Okay, we will move to, seeing no other items, we'll move to item 7, informational items from the chair, commission member, or staff. Does anybody have any other informational items besides Director Jones leaving tomorrow?
Mr. Chair, there are comments from staff when that's appropriate, but definitely would yield to the commission first.
Any commissioners?
Yeah, this is Rob. Looking at the project tracking document, the green, yellow, red document. Maybe I'm not recognizing it by title, but I guess I'm looking for a quick update on the status of the Stantec consultant study. And I'm not seeing that it appears here. We'd hope that we would kind of incorporate that into this document. I guess the one other thing, in green now, you have the final bullet point, Schultz Creek at 180. Since that's stated as being complete, is that time to drop that from the list, or are there reasons to continue to carry that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Vane, no, I think that's a great observation. I'll relay that back to our engineering section director. I think as they're completed, we can note those as complete, and then over the next few months, start to lower that list, so they'll just disappear. Happy to add the treatment plant master plan process. Just as a brief update, that project is currently on schedule. We're looking for completion before the end of the fiscal year, so before June 30th of 2025, that will be completed. The technical memos are being delivered on schedule. I had a chance to attend some of the workshops. We're doing some additional tasks, working with the consultants for spot point verification sampling. So I see a lot of activity that's occurring around that master planning document. But I will say it is currently on schedule. We will get that added to the list and have that for a future talking point. But just so you know, yeah, target to be complete by the end of the fiscal year.
One thing, question for the commissioners and staff is to just hit me as Commissioner Vane was talking about that. Is there a refresh necessary in January of all the projects on the chart? In other words, some of them obviously are going to continue, but are there some coming on that we need to add so that, given new year, well, not fiscal year, but new calendar year, might be good to note, have someone scrub it to say there's some things can come off, but there's some things that are kicking off in 2025 so that everybody's got vision on that. The whole point, yeah, was just sort of, I personally didn't want staff to take up time coming in to tell us everything about all those projects. I typically want to get involved when it's red, so or trending red. But it'd be good to add anything that might be kicking off that's not on there.
Good, that's noted.
Any other topics from commissioners so we can let staff go or proceed? Excuse me.
Kurt,
Yes, sir.
this is Don. Just a quick question for both you and Shannon. I'm wondering if the city has already started the process for backfilling or going out on the open market to fill your position. And I know that this commission was involved in interviewing commissioners or potential candidates a couple of years ago. So I'm just wondering where the city is in that process.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bills, so currently the city administration is aware of the vacancy and they have a recruitment strategy put in place that is anticipating to be over the next probably 3 to 6 months. In the meantime, the city has announced our section director for treatment operations, Lee Williams, as the interim division director. So we have an internal staff member who will be stepping up, filling an interim role as we navigate through that recruitment process. And for those that are interested, I do believe that position is set to post. I believe the first week in January.
And I believe the city clerk's office is aware and starting to post commission opportunities because I'm timing out and Commissioner Leverage is timing out right at the end of the year.
Mr. Chair,
So
yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
So over the last month, City Council has appointed 4 new commissioner meetings to the Water Commission that will start in January's meeting. I think do we have that roster available? So we're happy to go through those appointments if you would like to hear that, but we do have 4 positions have been filled. So I would like to thank, so Commissioner Don Beals did reapply for another term and was reappointed. Congratulations and thank you for your continued service. We also have the appointment of Ron Doba, will be a new commissioner, along with Matthew Garcia, Haley Paul, and Karine Watsack are the new appointments that will be in full effect in January. So we'll be working to facilitate the agenda to recognize them onboarding and any structural modifications that need made for the commission to continue to work smoothly.
That's great. That's a lot faster than through COVID. So that's fantastic.
So if I may, Chair, I think that's a good segue into the next part. So we did want, staff wanted to recognize that we do have 3 outgoing commissioners, 2 of which who are not here in person, but one that is, and we would like to present them with an appreciation award. So I'd like to honor to do that. I think for yourself, Mr. Chair, and for Council Member Leverage, we will get those expedited, delivered to you. But again, verbally wanted to share our appreciation from staff. We know that the commitment that it takes, right, to be engaged in the community, especially around water service and the services that we provide. We do know the amount of time and commitment that it takes. Not a lot of easy topics. I don't think we bring you the easy ones, right? We just pick the hard ones. But we appreciate the willingness to engage, right, to show up to the meetings, to show up outside the meetings. I've met with many of you multiple times. Outside of just this forum, we know that you put the time and effort. And so, yeah, we definitely want to recognize that. The one that we would like to present is to Commissioner Malcolm Alter for his years of service. And if you would allow me, I would walk up and present him with this award and hopefully shake his hand.
Please do. Malcolm, I don't know if there's a chant in the chamber of speech, 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 but anything you want to say?
Not really. It's been a lot of fun. You know, I think when I got word, they said I've been on since 2017. So my time is definitely due. But it's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun working with the various commissioners over the years. So many intelligent people and so many great ideas. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'll miss you guys there. Thanks.
Term limits, an excellent thing. I just, from my point, I just want to thank everybody at the department for being patient and listening to my rantings at times, and for the rest of the commissioners for being patient and dealing with me. But I've learned so much about water, about municipalities, working city municipalities, and also political operations within small towns. It was, or mid-sized town. It was really, really educational and so much fun. And yeah, thank you for everybody for helping me get up to speed and help. So thank you all.
I just wanted to say, the two of you here, and to Joe, you guys have such excellent expertises to be on this commission, and each one is different, and we're going to really miss you guys.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm sure the new people bring excellent and new skills as well. So, okay. Any other informational items?
Nothing from staff. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And that, okay, well, seeing none, we'll move to item 8, which is adjournment. And we'll adjourn at 5:14. And everybody have a safe, wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. Thank you.
Likewise.